ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for watching the show. This is your Top Think Tanks review. I'm your host, Bryce Dolan. Now, I know we've talked a lot this last year about police violence and brutality here in the United States. With the large number of protests and the size of the protests, and the high number of fatal encounters between police officers and civilians, and more specifically between officers and people of color, you could say this police brutality issue has reached a crisis point here in the US. Well, today we're going to take a look at an article and survey results from the Pew Research Center. The Pew Research Center has conducted a wide-range survey, one of the largest ever, with a nationally representative sample of 8,000 police officers, both men and women, from police stations with at least 100 officers. Now, we're going to take a look at these survey results and see how these officers feel on the other side of this police brutality issue. You hear a lot in the media about civilians' opinions, but let's see how the officers feel. Now let's take a look at this graph here. 86% said the fatal encounters between police and civilians have made their job harder. 93%, that is 9 of every 10 officers of this 8,000 have become more concerned about their safety. 76% have become more reluctant to use force when appropriate. 75% say interactions between police and people of color have become tense. And 72% say they have become less willing to stop and question people who seem suspicious. Now, these results could all closely tie in with that high 93% number about the concern for safety. Being concerned about your safety would hinder you from stopping someone being suspicious or using appropriate force. Now, this survey also finds that officers remain deeply skeptical of the protests that have followed deadly encounters between police and people of color. 2/3 of officers, or 68%, say the demonstrations are motivated to a great extent by anti-police bias. Now, only 10% in a separate question say protesters are similarly motivated by a genuine desire to hold police accountable for their actions. So there are a couple things that get strewed here. 93% of this 8,000 sample of officers are concerned about their safety. Because they're concerned, they're less likely to stop people who look suspicious, they're less likely to use force when appropriate, and situations between people of color have become tense for them. And because it has become tense, it's because they're constantly concerned about their safety and they don't know how each civilian feels. But then you can look at the flip side, is the civilians don't know how the police officers feel. And there's a similar line here where the opinions get strewed and people get scared because they don't really understand what is happening. Now, police officers say that these protests are more anti-police. They are more like death to police and want violence, when in reality, maybe a large number of these protests don't want that, or maybe that is true. So that is where this all gets messed up, is you forget who wants what, and you assume one side wants one thing, and then once you assume, you draw conclusions, and that never ends well. Yes, some of these protests could be anti-police and could be with a violent attitude, but there has also been some protests that could have not had that attitude, and their main goal was to hold police accountable for their actions. Now, you can't say that all these protests are one and all these protests are the other, because not all of them are the same. They don't all contain the same people with the same attitude. Each person has a different opinion, so one protest might be more violent than the other, just like police might be more concerned about their safety because they think protesters want violence more than they actually do. So really, you just have a confusion of feelings on both sides of this issue here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to take a look at these results yourself or the rest of the results from this large survey, you can check out this survey from the link below in the description. You can just click on that link and it'll take you directly to this article on the Pew Research Center website. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get notified every time a new video is posted, and then make sure you like each of our 3 Facebook pages, the Top Intelligence Agencies page, Top Think Tanks, and your Top Human Rights Organization. And make sure to follow us on Twitter. But that does it for your Top Think Tanks review, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching. I was your host, Bryce Dolan.